Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Holy Angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Well, thank you for joining me tonight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess here. The music you were listening to at the beginning of the show is I Sense Your Presence by Shemshai. And I just want to extend a welcome to everybody that's here tonight, whether you're in chat, listening on the phone lines, or just listening here on the website. It's great to have you here, whether this is your first time or your returning time here. And I do focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday life. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which some of you may have experienced on previous shows. And if you've missed it, you can catch it in our archives. I've authored 2 books titled Activating Compassion and Activating Compassion, the Workbook. In addition, I've also created and worked with the Compassion Tour, and that is a tour that I did going around to various states throughout the United States. It included workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, fundraising events. I'm looking forward to extending that even further in 2013. And you can always follow any events that are available to register for that tour at jessieannnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. I have finished for 2012, but there will be events coming up in 2013 on that. And there's also an option there for those of you who either can't participate in the tour or you just want to help support, get me out, for example, to some of the fundraising events that I'm doing. That's called Gifting the Tour, and you can just gift any amount of money that you want in there that you'd like to choose. So here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at different ways that compassion exists in our lives. I look at how to remove our blocks, our resistances, frustrations, and more. Some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life and how it affects our life and the different areas of compassion. Some weeks I'm doing more exercises and practical implementations. Many times I've got guests on the show so that you can learn about their work and how the things that other people are doing complement and work with compassion. And I also highlight different musical artists along the way. So in addition to that, then occasionally I have also coaching nights, and these are nights where people can call in and share what's happening in their life, and I work with them live on the air to get through things that they're dealing with or make breakthroughs in their life or things like that, answer questions that they have. And when you share your experiences, remember this, like when you're asking questions of people, when you're sharing your experiences, then you're actually helping other people as well, because usually somebody else either knows somebody that's dealing with the same thing or they might be dealing with the same thing themselves. And on tonight's show, I have a guest, Clare Hedin, and we're going to be looking at dynamic emergence. Now, this is the 3rd guest in a series of 3 that I've been doing that has been dealing with all of the energy shifts and transitions that we have going on. And Claire comes in from a very different perspective. And I do see we have a couple of people in our phone queues already. And just to let you know, if you'd like to call in and speak to either myself or Claire during the show, you just dial in on 760-542-4345, and you'll just press 1 to get into my caller queue. So if you have any questions, like I said, for either Claire or myself, you can just call in on that number, and I'll be watching also in the chat. So for those people who don't have that ability to call in, I'll be watching the chat area as well, and I can take questions from that area as well for you. So lots of options for connecting with us. And just a reminder that if you enjoy this show, make certain that you tell your friends, your family, significant others, Facebook connections, whoever you want to share it with. And they can always listen to the shows in the archives. So that's a great way, especially for those people, maybe they can't stay up as late or they're in another country or things like that. The archives are a great way to catch those shows as well. And they just use the same link that you use to get into the show, and they can listen to it at their convenience. The other option is they can go to my Activating Compassion Facebook page, and that's at facebook.com/activatingcompassion/notes. And I keep all of the archived shows there. Now, what I like to do every week is I like to work with Yehuda Berg's book, The 72 Names of God, and just kind of get a little energy flowing our direction and just see who is coming in and just see what the energy is that's coming into our show for the evening. And what I do is just kind of randomly draw in a message. And it seems like it's always amazing how when you do this, that it really applies to things that are happening universally or with our guest or our topic for the night. So I'm just going to kind of randomly come in here and pick out something for tonight. And the message that I've got tonight is Farewell to Arms. And this is kind of interesting. This actually came up about 2 months ago, so it's coming back around to us. And, again, I do see those people in the queue, so be patient with us. We will get to questions and things after a little bit here in the show. So with Farewell to Arms, our message is solutions for peace are never political, philosophical, or militaristic. Violence, even when justified, is merely fighting darkness with more darkness. Solutions must be founded upon spiritual light and the human soul. Conflict and war among nations begin with friction between individual people. A nation at war is simply the effect of spiritual darkness born of animosity and intolerance among individuals who comprise the nation. As long as brothers or friends can find reason to clash with one another, nations will devise reasons for bloody battle. We've been duped into believing that our actions towards others have no impact upon the world at large. Wrong. Not only do interactions between two people contribute to the state of the world, each interaction totally and completely transforms the world. But it's difficult to detect this global makeover because everyone else's actions are also transforming the planet at every moment. The state of the world is merely the sum total of human interaction. When enough people make the effort to find good in one another, nations will suddenly and miraculously discover ways to achieve a lasting harmony. There it is, the long-hidden formula for world peace. It begins with us. Peace flourishes when we extend tolerance unconditionally to our neighbors. Be aware with complete conviction that our efforts are changing the entire world in that one moment. And the meditation that Yehuda provides with this thought is just as the light of a bulb banishes darkness from a room, conflict on every scale between people arguing about a parking space or between nations arguing about an oil field is brought to a peaceful end through the light of this name. And the name is pronounced for this, to draw in this Farewell to Arms, is called Mem Bet He. Mem Bet He. So this is really a valuable thing. And to look at this, I'm so excited in a way that this message came up with the guests that we have tonight, Clare Hedin, and it's because she works with music. She really works with that individual level to show that just as an individual, how much can be transformed and how powerful that can be. And we're in a time, as I've mentioned, she's the third of three guests that have come on this show to talk about this emergence that we're in. And as I mentioned in the first one, we dealt with symbols and glyphs, and we had Jean Logan on. And the symbols and the glyphs were the starting point. And then, we moved on from there, and we had Tina Irwin on last week. And Tina really talked about how this opening and this energy is flowing through and what was going on with that. And now we're really in a process of activating that energy to a greater peace, to a greater connection with one another, to emerging and being able to tap into that energy of the fifth dimension. So this is very, very exciting. And I think music is noted as the tool or the key for doing this. And music has that power to transcend us in that direction. Just some thoughts as far as the role music plays. Music has been a part of culture, society, history, and emerging transformations for basically all of time. Everything operates on a vibration, and thus everything has a song that it plays. So think about that. I mean, whether that's nature or your heart or whatever it is, everything has a song that it plays. And sometimes it comes together in a song that we hear, and sometimes it is undetectable to us. And the phrase, music soothes the soul, may have been one of the earliest household phrases given as an expression or metaphor of how music affects us, not only emotionally, but on a soul level. And the phrase, you or it sings to my heart, is used to express something that resonates with our soul and stirs us emotionally, uplifting us vibrationally. Music's power on all aspects of our being can change body, mind, and spirit of all things. And in these times of emergence, it is said that music will be what lifts us up and raises us to a higher state of being or existence. Music has that power to bring people together and to separate. But mostly what it can do is really bring us together. And that's what Clare's music does. Like all things, it is neither good or bad, but it's how we choose to use it that determines the effects that it has. Through research, it has been shown that music can cause people to go insane, grate on nerves, creating anger or aggression, cause the body to deteriorate, yet it can also be used to bring great peace and joy and calmness. It can bring harmony and balance. It can cause the body, mind, and soul to heal itself. The vibrations of music can increase or decrease our own vibrational level. It is an important part of the world that we are becoming, and religions everywhere use tones and music as part of worship. Listening even for a few minutes to music can make it easier to accomplish things, allowing the brain clarity and focus, allowing the body to relax and accomplish things easier. What if you could change your life by simply listening to music? Music is a tool for compassion. It raises our vibrational level so that we can reach a state of compassion easier. Think of the times you've been enjoying music in your life, where you were happier, more understanding, patient, and relaxed. Music's ability to uplift us allows us to be in harmony during this time of emergence, not only into the new year, but as a planet moving into a new dimension of existence. This emergence increases compassion everywhere, resonating not only on Earth, but throughout the entire universe. And I do have a caller in the queue. I want to acknowledge them. They've got a question here, I believe, and I'm just going to bring them on real quick. And for those of you that are just joining us, we have a guest, Clare Hedin, on tonight, and we're going to be bringing her on shortly. Caller from 716 area code, you're on the air. Did you have a question already?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I will come back to you.
I'm sorry. I wanted to wait till you hear, part of the show first before I ask my question.
Absolutely. That's fine. I'm going to put you back on hold. And you can always do 2 to take your question off of my queue, or you can then hit again and come back in when you're ready to ask.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's perfectly fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break here, and when I return, we're going to have tonight's guest, Clare Hedin, on with us. And the music that I'm going to play here for this short little break is one of Clare's songs. It's called Dreaming with Wings. It's going to give you a taste. We have a lot of her music that we're going to be playing throughout the show tonight. So definitely hang in there with us, stay with us, and enjoy this piece, Dreaming with Wings. Okay, so for those of you that are just joining in here, we have guest Clare Hedin on tonight. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. We are doing a musical show tonight, so we are going to have some discussion going on with Clare, as well as playing several of her musical pieces along the way. And I'm going to be bringing Clare on here in just a moment. She is an artist, voice healer, sacred sound singer, speaker on dynamic emergence, founder and director of Arts for Earth. Clare is a mixed media artist with a healing and educational background. She has a Master of Arts in Consciousness Studies and brings consciousness through music, art, and collaboration. We are going to be looking at Clare's focus tonight on dynamic emergence. And for those of you that want to check out more on her work, her websites are ClareHedin.com and the artsforearth.com. And I'm going to type those into our chat area because it's a little different than it sounds. And that is Clare, CLARE, Hedin, HEDIN.com. And then we also have her other site, which is the artsforearth.com. And so both of those. Let me go ahead and bring Clare on here. Clare, it's so great to have you here tonight, and I want to thank you so much for being on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. It's really generous of you to give us your time, and I know that you've been very, very busy with your work and the development of the Arts for Earth, which is a key project.
Yes, well, Jessie, thank you very much for having me. It's always very exciting to hear my music on the radio.
And
yes,
I know you've agreed to let me use it on future shows, so I'm really excited to have that.
Well, yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm excited about that. I mean, the reason I share music at all is because it completes my experience to have it go outwards, because there's these various cycles of experiencing. So the first cycle is this impulse that makes me feel sort of fidgety, and then I decide which instrument, like if it's in the realm of music, then which instrument am I drawn to, and there's this gradual layering of sounds until there's a point, like a painting, there's a point at which I feel released from it, like I'm done. And then it kind of has its own life to complete, which for me, as the author of that moment, is to witness it being heard by others and having hopefully an impact of some kind. And so, yeah, the idea of people hearing it on the radio is just magnifies that to the power of a lot.
And your music is so interesting to me because it does have this spiritual vibration to it. It does seem to align with the universal energies, and it's got this diversity from having pieces where you're singing on the music to pieces where you're speaking on the music to pieces where you've got elements coming in like water and waves and springs, and then you've got other pieces that are almost more chanting or haunting, almost what I would relate to some of the monk vibrations of almost an Om vibration coming through. I think that would be maybe a layperson's term for it on there, because I know you've got all the technical terms. And I just want to remind our listeners they can call in or type into chat if they have any questions for you along the way. I would love for you to fill us in a little bit as far as, what brought you to doing the work that you're doing now, like with music. What brought you into this?
Oh, Jessie, that's such a huge question. Let me just sit with that for a moment, because it's a profound question, really. Visiting with the question is a profound experience because I care so much about where things come from. And so I'm constantly of an inquisitive mind, you know, wanting to find out, well, why am I doing this and where's it coming from and what's its purpose? And I think before I really focused on music, I was captivated by art. So and photography and writing, you know, poetry and sort of a narrative prose kind of thing. And so I was exploring these different avenues, and I had studied music classically up until about the age of probably 17, the piano that was, and I used to sing in the school choir. But I had no feeling for it, really, apart from these occasional moments where I would just sort of noodle around when no one was listening on a piano. But I was always rather intimidated by the piano, especially growing up in England. The classical training was really sort of serious. And you didn't study anything but classical music. And if you didn't feel an affinity for that, then you were kind of out of luck, and it just became a very technical exercise of sort of getting it right. And as a result of that, what I discovered was that when I did finally come round to playing music again, it was through an instrument that I wasn't trained on. A friend lent me a guitar, probably about 20 or so years ago, and I didn't really know anything about the guitar except that you could tune it in different ways, and it made it easier to play. And I just started writing songs that were really basic, but they meant something to me, and they became a very cathartic, very personal exploration. And it's just gradually kind of weaved back and forth like a sort of zigzag, this exploration between form and formlessness. And so looking for something. So I'm always looking for something. And it's not necessarily something that I end up finding, but more a sense of a feeling or a sense of relationship. So nowadays, you know, I was originally writing songs that were very story-based and exploring emotional phenomena and personal stories of my life and finding peace with things through that process. But then at a certain point I started to get sort of twitchy again. It's like, well, what's between the stories? Like, what about that space in between all the letters? What happens in there? And what happens behind there? And that's when I didn't know the answer to the question, and I didn't really know how to explore the question experientially, creatively. But I eventually followed my approach to visual arts with music, and I just did a conscious choice to become very abstract and focus on listening and let that be the thing that then expresses itself, the listening experience. And that's when it started to get kind of exciting. And there's just so many ways to approach connecting with nature, connecting with one's own spirit. And I think I can say a lot more, but I want to let you speak.
I think that is so true, and I love that you brought up it's that sense of relationship, because we have this sense of relationship between everything on the face of the earth, which is where some of your other projects come in, working with nature and other aspects of the arts, and that it's those spaces in between. It's not just the starting point and the destination in our life, but it's the journey. It's the journey. It's the movement in between. And like I said, I do want to keep incorporating some music here along the way. And you brought up an aspect of listening. You know, needing to listen, and that's one thing. We get so ready to talk and to share sometimes in our processes that we forget to listen. And I think that's a very valuable part of things. I want to, with that, since we're on that topic, you've got a song that's titled "Listen to Me," And I'm going to go ahead and bring that in and play that one for us here. So this is done by Clare, and it is called Listen to Me.
So you walk down the aisle, books on either side, and you know that you are waiting for just one to catch your eye, and then you'll look through its pages. What will you find? Oh, the answers to the questions that keep spinning through your mind. Well, never you mind, you'll seek what you find, 'cause the universe is listening to your mind. Listen to me. Answers everywhere, and you sit at a table in a room with a view, and as you look out the window, your life looks back at you. You stop for a moment. What are you to do? Did anyone ever really tell you that your life would look at you? Well, never you mind, you'll seek what you find, 'cause the universe is listening to your mind. Listen to me. And you might turn on the TV, and your room is filled with stars. You will see exotic lifestyles, envy brand new cars, and then you start dreaming you want it to be yours. One minute you were happy, but now you're not so sure. Well, never you mind, you'll find what you seek, 'cause the universe is listening as we speak. Listen to me. Answers everywhere. Perhaps it's in a church where you seek your solitude, and if not, the voice of God can reach you through the Christian tune. The church is in your living room as well as on your street. You see, the gods are pretty versatile, with the voice of man they speak. If you choose me, you'll be complete. I am the universe, so listen as I speak. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. I will set you free. Set you free. You see answers everywhere, answers that you seek there in those passing conversations in books and films that we might see. We're not short of answers, it's the questions that we need. You see, the questions are the gateways, the things that set us free. Ask the right questions and you'll see that the universe is listening as we speak. Listen to me. Answers everywhere.
Okay, so the song that we were just listening to, it's called Listen to Me. It is by Clare Hedin, and she is our guest tonight. on the air with us. And if you're wondering why we're doing so much music tonight, because this is that third show in the series of 3 that I've been doing that is bringing in the new energies that we're working with, bringing in a connection to the fifth dimensional energies, which are more accessible to us now, and music is the way that we do that. And I find that Claire's music, because she's got a very specific focus on dynamic emergence, really, really helps us connect with that and is really bringing that in. And Claire, tell us a little bit. You speak about dynamic emergence. Tell us a little bit more about that and some of your concepts with that.
Okay. Wow. Well, I began to notice a while ago that I changed depending on who I was with. And I know that psychology can kind of come up with all sorts of reasons for that, but I think it has wider implications than simply psychology. And so I've really been watching to see, well, how do I change? And what do I experience in different environments? So there are some simple sort of small ways to notice things about how we change. So, for instance, we might start using different language, longer words, more elegant words, or we might start swearing more with certain people, and we might start laughing more with certain people. The subject matter we talk about changes. And there arises this possibility to actually access, to consciously choose to access a new place. And it's not that it's a new place, but it's that we are a new place within it. So what that really means is that that there's a triad, at least a triad. So if I'm having a conversation with you, Jessie, which I'm doing tonight, we are touching on certain things that I wouldn't touch on in the same way with somebody else. And because of who you are, all the trajectories that come together to make you in this moment of time and in this place in time, I get to experience myself in a slightly different way too. So the elevation, because you obviously do have a strong focus on consciousness, I can tell that from how I feel talking with you. I automatically get to expand into this larger space too and enjoy it. And this can actually be a very important practical thing to be aware of. If people aren't aware of how they are different in different environments, like even if you think about relationships, like primary romantic relationships, and there are some people that you enjoy being you around, and there are other people that you find yourself feeling really either awkward or wrong, like just somehow you're just not right as a person, And these sort of shades of ourselves are really important to pay attention to so that we can choose environments that really enable us to shine. Because when we shine, we are in our best position to automatically, without effort, help the expansion of consciousness for others as well.
And that is an incredible point to bring up, I think, because this is something, as we're making this connection with higher vibrations, as we are raising our vibrations these days, that we pay attention to those little feelings, how we are feeling with somebody. Are we able to relax with them? Do we get a sense of peace around them, or are we getting this tension? And it doesn't always mean that person's a bad person, but our energies might be conflicting with that person. We may not be the right person to be able to open up with them. So I think that there are different aspects like that, and we have to pay attention because these things are going to get more and more evident as the planet's vibrations start to raise.
I fully agree with you, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity because I think as a species, like if you referring back to the idea of violence that you were reading about earlier, and quoting. I think violence, apart from stemming from fear and defensiveness, I think it can also stem from not really understanding who we are. And there is an opportunity, there's always an opportunity to remember ourselves. And so when we start to pay attention to the little signs, and they're often body signals. You know, we have these various kinds of intelligence, which is also part of dynamic emergence as a sort of a map. You know, we have our sensorial intelligence, like when the body kind of, you know, the hairs stand up on the back of our neck. That's part of our sensorial intelligence. When you walk into a room and you immediately kind of retract within yourself because you can tell something happens, maybe an argument or something that made the energy feel a little less expansive, frozen for a moment in time. You know, all of those things, when we can pay attention to them, it means we don't really have to be afraid of where we go in the world. It means that we need to be discerning about where we stay. But in terms of where we go, when we're visiting different environments or different groups of people, we can actually remember that we are not that which we visit with, but we can be influenced by it for a period of time. And it gives us a chance to really tune into each other and to actually have compassion. Because if your mood suddenly shifts, or your feeling towards the world suddenly shifts when you're in a certain group of people or with one particular person, you can actually take from that the very strong possibility that that person is carrying that vibration. And you'll be influenced by it until you realize that it's happening. And the noticing is its own alchemy. And then you can actually in turn have compassion for someone who might be behaving in ways that aren't very attractive. But you get it. You get, this person is suffering, you know, and then you can choose how you respond to that.
Absolutely. And you talk about being in different environments, and this is a huge thing. I've worked for an adventure company in the recent past, just as some seasonal work for enjoyment and fun and getting back to nature in some ways. And the different environments we are in make a huge difference. I mean, how you feel in an office space versus how you feel sitting next to a fountain or in a mountain area versus the desert area. And they all have different vibrations that touch us in different ways. And it's not that any one environment is necessarily better or stronger than another as much as they're different. And the same thing is true with people, is, you know, they're just different vibrations, and we have different compatibility levels. I'm going to actually play in here just so that we can grasp some of the aspects of environment. You put together a piece called White Springs, which I really love. It's one of your shorter pieces, but I think it really kind of ties in that aspect of environment and how that can really expand us through the nature and through the natural sounds and being with it. And it's interesting because water is always one of the great healers. When we look at things physically, when we look at mentally being able to clear our mind in a very short period of time, or being able to reestablish health in our body, they say you should be near some sort of running water. So this piece here by Clare is called White Springs. What I love about that piece is it's so different than some of the ones that we heard earlier, and it brings out a different style of your music, which I think is almost a little closer to some of the sound healing vibrations that I'm familiar with. Is that true, or am I off base?
No, I think it is true. I find I become quite still when I listen to that. And the place it's recorded in is relevant. You know, the White Springs is a water cave at the foot of the skirts of the Tor in Glastonbury in Somerset. And Glastonbury is a very holy place, and it's also a place of great revelry. But the holiness of it is that people there, whether they're Christian or pagan or any other kind of religion, if that's the right word, not entirely comfortable with that word, but you know what I mean.
Right.
The White Springs is a very special place. It's got running water, natural running water that's coming from the hill, which is the Tor. That's the name of the hill. And people pilgrim from all over the world. Joseph of Arimathea is said to have come to Glastonbury. And they have pools that they created and volunteers, and they light the whole place with loads of beautiful white candles and altars. And you just go and you just be in this place, and the echoes are phenomenal. So that was all recorded without any effects. It's a very simple recording machine that I use when I'm doing field recordings. But it's so sacred. You know, you can just feel the history, the ancestry, and the depth, you know, the depth of presence that's there. Yes, it is different.
I definitely agree with that, and I feel too with that. What's interesting is as you're describing that and you're describing the environment, it is an environment that is being brought out or envisioned by many different groups with this time of emergence, where they talk of that very setting, whether it's that specific place or another one, being a portal for the fifth dimensional energy.
Yes, and interestingly, Glastonbury, as far as I'm aware, is considered to be the heart chakra for the world. You know how people say there are like 7 chakra points around the world?
Right.
And I believe Glastonbury is the heart, but if someone's listening and they have a different idea, then I'd be happy to hear that.
And that's interesting because that is the vibration that we're moving into with this emergence. Yes. Is the expanding heart vibration and the knowledge of the heart being such a powerful connector for that energy in there. So as we start to look at this, how do you see the role that music is going to play? Like, what role will it play with this emergence that we're experiencing? How will sound be a part of this healing?
Well, I think much like my own, like in a very tiny sort of microcosm, my own relationship to music over time. If you look at our history with music, it's always been with us. It's ushered us through and supported us in various revolutions, civil revolutions and otherwise. I mean, it also supports people going into war. So, you know, it's not necessarily used in ways that are all about love, depending on what you believe love is meant to look like. But I think with this period of time, more of us need a bridge to the other side of our minds. Like, we have these really busy minds, and we have a lot of things on our plates, most of us, that we're worried about, whether it's disproportionately or not. There's just a lot going on internally and externally. And I think at this point it's likely that music will become more and more of a higher vibration to facilitate and support the shifting upwards in our own frequencies, individually and as collectives. And so there's, I think as we evolve, I think as our consciousness evolves, I think we definitely migrate towards more of a sense of formlessness and away from this more rigid order that we have traveled through, through the Dark Ages, for instance, and the Enlightenment. So it's always our friend, really. I think it's always there, and it's available, and people can approach music like what we played with the White Springs, what you played a few minutes ago. People can do that for themselves. They don't have to sound like me or like anyone else. We each have our own sound-making capacity, and not to be confused with singing or performance, where there's an idea that you have to be of a certain standard or you're meant to sound a certain way. I think if you're meant to growl, you should growl, I think our bodies need to make sounds. That's part of our health. I think it's part of our psychic health as well as our physical health. It's really being more animalistic in our sound bodies and less polite.
And I think that is a good aspect that you bring up, that we need to be able to embrace those different levels, those different aspects of where we come from and where we're headed. And as we evolve, sometimes we think, or people get these concepts that they have to be more restricted and more refined, and they can't let loose and embrace some of that animalistic nature, which can be so powerful to us to tap into. You've got a song or a piece that's called Ancestral Natures, which I think is really about that. It's got that more primal aspect to it. And I won't play the entire piece on this because it is kind of a long piece, but
yes,
just to kind of embrace people a little bit with that animalistic nature and to draw in on some of that vibration. Again, this piece is called Ancestral Nature's Consciousness.
Nature's intelligence can project patterns and rhythms into the future. These intelligences should not be neglected nor forgotten. If we instill and alter the patterns and rhythms that were initially set up, the projection may no longer be accurate. A call to antiquity is being related to our natural environment. We must think creatively now and for the future. The tips of the branches represent the descendants of an ancestor. As you move from the root to the tip, you move forward in time. We watch the birds and found a way to fly. When humans consider solutions for restoring balance to the world, they need only access everything is interconnected.
So with that piece, and I know it's a little bit hard to hear some of the talking that's on there, it definitely is, I think, bringing in some of that, a little more of just that I don't know if I'd call it tribal, but a little more of that edgier side, and it's a much more subtle aspect of sound healing that's coming through. It's kind of a blend of ethereal and primal and different things in there.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because the piece itself has a story. I think it sounds like some of the singing was, from White Springs. But I recently just finished teaching a 4-month class at San Francisco State. I had the I had 43 students in a class, and they were extraordinary. And we were exploring dynamic emergence and creativity and innovation and really how to show up, basically. And we looked at these different kinds of intelligences because I feel like that's really a key for people who find the way they access their imagination is through more of a left brain approach. It can be really helpful to consider the different kinds of intelligence that we have, including rational, including intuitive. And for the first time that, since I've taught this class, and this was my fourth time of teaching it, I asked them to research something that we didn't have a book for, and I asked them to go and do their own research on what they believed or wanted to find out about ancestral consciousness, which I called ancestral intelligence, and also nature's intelligence. And I said, it's wide open, you can't get it wrong. So just go and let your intuition guide how you research this, and then write something. So I received all their papers, whenever that next class was due. And I read them, and they were profound, really. I was so excited, and so I pulled out certain phrases from their papers, and bar maybe 2 or 3 phrases that I threw in, all of that text, the spoken word, is in fact from the students, just pieced together in this sort of montage or collage to create an ambiance. And even though you can't understand everything that's being said, because I had quite a strong echo on it, I feel like it's really more the whisper that you're meant to experience, not necessarily all the words. But, on different occasions when you listen, you'll hear different things.
And
that's kind of the story of it.
And I gathered that the whisper effect of it is really, really powerful in there.
Mm.
It's almost like some of those things where our ears pick up sounds that our conscious mind isn't always aware of. And
yes.
And I think that can have a very powerful effect on us one way or another. Animals, of course, have a very high sensitivity to sound, and they're much more prone to, we see them responding before we hear what they're hearing. And so those subtle sounds can really connect us in a powerful way spiritually with the universal energies.
I agree. I think what they do is they tap in and appeal to the part of us that is nonlinear, and we don't get enough time to play in that part of ourselves. And I think that's the part of ourselves that really is going to save the world, quite literally, because it's going to take a real leap into a different kind of faith to help turn this boat. It's kind of like being on the Titanic, and the rock is coming towards us, the iceberg, and we have to find a new way of knowing. So,
absolutely, and we do need to find a new way of knowing and understanding in here, and again, music is just such a powerful way of doing it in this aspect. And I kind of trance when I get your music going as I've been listening to it, trying to put it in. And it's like, gosh, there's just so many different melodies and things like that are going on. And I think one of the things in here is that we sometimes wonder, well, where is my role in this? Where is my piece of things in this? And I think part of it is to keep in mind that we're all chosen. We all have a piece that we're carrying and sharing. And just like you made this piece of music with all of your students contributing, we're all that chosen person. we're all that has that message. So it's just about discovering it and opening it and releasing it and tuning into it. And sometimes I think people struggle a little bit on a human dynamic with, how can I be the chosen one? Like, that isn't that reserved for the creator? Well, we all have that creative energy in us. And like you say, when we tap into the music, it takes us out of time and space and right or wrong. It's about experience, which is one of the big pieces to this emergence that we're doing right now is experience. It's getting away from the doing, getting back to the being and being in the present. So I'm going to share this piece that you put together that is called The Chosen One, and hopefully this is going to help people tap in a little bit to that aspect within themselves.
You just gave me goosebumps.
Your eyes shine with kindness, your hair curls with joy, your heart lights the bedroom, your grace fills the sky. You are the chosen one, so bright, just like the sun. You are so blessed be. You are a joy to me. Your name sings the heavens, and nature hears it too. Imagination whispers, creating life through you. You are the chosen whisper, so bright, just like the sun. You fill my heart with gladness, you do for everyone. The heavens sing a chorus of which you are a part. They hear you when you suffer. They hold your blessed heart. You are the chosen one, so bright, just like the sun. You are so blessed be. You are a joy to me. You are a joy to me. You are the one I love, so blessed be. You are the one I chose to be with me. You are the one I love with all my might. You are my joy, you're my delight. You are the one I love, that I adore. You are the one my life was created for. You are the one I love, so blessed be. You are a joy to me. Oh.
I just love that because it's just such a great reminder that we were created. You know, we were created as the one. Our lives were created to share and to just open up to being with each other. And this.
You know, yes. I mean, Jessie, when you introduced the song and you said you hoped that it might help some people who would be hearing it, that really wasn't opened my eyes, because it made me remember that these songs actually are alive, like that they can do things for people. And because I wrote them, you know, I wrote them in a moment in time that was kind of like a time capsule of an experience that I was having. And that particular one was with a little girl in the Oakland Children's Hospital. That's what brought that song forward. And I didn't know her, but the song just wrote itself. And the chaplain, after I'd played it to the little girl, her name was Jenny, she said, "You have no idea how absolutely appropriate those words were for her." And I didn't. It's true, because, you know, when you go into a hospital, unless you're family, you don't know anything about them, the children. It's private, you see. So you just go and share from the heart. And, you know, it's very, very moving. It's a very uplifting thing to do.
And
so that was nice.
And I've got somebody in chat that has mentioned my very issue I am dealing with. And I believe they're referring to embracing themselves as being a chosen one, and having that message. And I think you bring out such a great point, Claire, that sometimes a message is coming out of us, and we're sharing a message with somebody, but we don't always understand how that message is going to have an impact. We don't always understand how powerful that message is going to be. And I actually had an experience recently that my message that I put out in the world had this huge impact. And I had some people that I had been working with on my 2012 tour, and I had sent some copies of my book out to them. And I got an email recently after this person had gotten my book, and it just came in the last couple of days, and she said to me, she says, "I have somebody that I work with who has autism, and they saw your book with me and was so drawn and so compelled to your book that we are now using it as a workbook to help open up in the work that we're doing together." And it touched me in such an amazing way. But those are the things that you don't know when you're creating something, when you're putting something out there, when you're sharing something with the world, on whatever level that is, whether that's day-to-day interactions or creating music or writing books or whatever it is, that it's going to have these impacts. And it's about putting it out there even before you know what kind of impact it's going to have.
I agree with you. Martha Graham speaks to this, the dancer. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but she was famous for pointing out to people that it's really not for the artist or the creator of something to edit or decide.
Yeah. We've got a little something going on. You're coming in really fuzzy all of a sudden.
Shall I hang up and call back in?
Yeah, if you can do that, that would be great, because you're coming in to where I don't think our listeners can hear what you're saying there. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that, and while we wait for Claire to come back in on our phone lines, I'm going to bring in a piece here that is called Dia Harmonies by her. It's one of her shorter pieces, and just bringing in those harmonies that we are creating through these relationships, and by putting our work out there and talking and communicating and sharing with.
Little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. you have a place in hearts and minds down here on earthly fallows. Your light will shine and dance you will upon the skies of spirit. We learn, we love, we touch, we part, we feel the circle's healing. So thank you, yes, thank you, we thank you oh so deeply. And thank you, yes, thank you, we thank you for your visit. Oh dear, dear little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. So thank you, yes, thank you, dear, sweet in spirit. And thank you, yes, thank you, we thank you for your visit.
For those of you that are just joining in, you're listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and we do have guest Clare Hedin on, and that was one of her pieces, Dia Harmonies. For those of you that have been listening in, again, if you would like to tune in to more of Clare's work, find out more about her, you can also go on to her websites, and that's Clare Hedin, and that's ClareHedin.com. And she's also got a second website called that is theartsforearth.com. And The Arts for Earth is another program that Clare has been working with, and it's a new project. And actually, Clare, that's where I was going to transition into with you now that we've got back on the air. And maybe you can share with us a little bit about what that project is.
Well, the Arts for Earth caught me by surprise, actually. All my life, I've kind of been watching people not really behave quite rightly towards the earth, and especially in terms of business, pollution in manufacturing and waste products and all that kind of thing. And I've been looking for a way to give that voice, give that sense of urgency and that sense of need, like a need for people to start paying attention, more voice. And it just so happened that a friend of mine called Polly Higgins from the UK, who is working to do the same thing but in the legal realms, so she's working with a concept called ecocide, eradicating ecocide, and trying to make that the 5th crime against peace at the United Nations level. And she happens to be coming over here. And I all of a sudden realized that I had this moment in time where I could make this project happen. And it ended up becoming this website called The Arts for Earth. And the main project, there are a couple of projects, but the one that it's sort of this ongoing project is called Be a Tree. And the idea was, I kind of had this vision of people all around the world getting infected with the idea that they wanted to be a tree or a grove of trees, and that maybe they'd be in Alaska doing research and they'd just be a grove of trees in the snow or ice in Alaska and take a picture and post it on the Facebook page. There's a Be a Tree Facebook page. Or maybe people might be sailing around the world and they would catch onto it and decide, I'm going to be a tree on this, on the boat, take a picture and post it, or maybe do a video of it, dancing trees, anything really. But the whole idea was just to get people's imagination, to remind people that don't realize, like especially some of the younger folk perhaps, that where there is now tarmac and your cars are parked outside a Walmart, there used to be trees, you know, and then in various places that it's deforested, whether it's the Amazon or in India, you know, there used to be trees there, and trees are essential for the health of the planet and for our oxygen, actually. So, you know, for various reasons. And it was a project that I experienced in a leadership training course in Embercombe, in sort of a deep countryside in southwest England. And it was a week-long thing called The Journey, and it really was a journey. But part of the experience was we actually had to dig holes and plant ourselves up to about mid-calf and become trees for half an hour. They left us there. We just sort of literally became trees in a grove of trees, like we were in a woodland. And I found it so profound. I found it so profound that and so beautiful, like to look around and see not only the beautiful wooden trees, but then all these extraordinary human trees intermingled. Like there's no difference between us, you know, in terms of our presence. And I thought this is the kind of activism that I want to get involved in, the kind where we use art and beauty to stimulate the profound connection that we have to our natural essence. And that's much harder to argue with than it is with people who have had the courage to chain themselves to, you know, a tree or to something that wants to tear down a tree. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. But I feel like there's a really important place for art. And you see it a lot with flash mobs in all sorts of ways, but I think there's a really important place for art to activate our memory. I think there's part of us that's fallen asleep, you know, to our creative nature and to how that ties us to the natural world and how we can use that as a way to be intimate and protective of the natural world.
And trees are an incredible healer as well, as is water. It's another one of the key elements for healing. And I'm sure that a lot of people have experienced going out and hugging a tree, but to really get into that foundational root of what it's like to be planted in the ground. I know that one of the big movements that I see coming up more and more is that trees represent bridging heaven and earth a lot of times, because they are reaching up to the sky, they are reaching out to other dimensions, other planes, other energies, and yet they're firmly grounded here. And I think there's such a fantastic symbol for this emergence, for this shifting of energies, because as human beings, we're going to be on this earth. We're going to be in this third dimensional, which we talked about last week. But as souls and light beings, we're also reaching out to this other dimension, to this other energy, and bringing that in and absorbing it and creating our arts, you know, creating our arts here, being our art. You know, we are an art in that sense, which I think is really
art.
Yeah, we are an art. We're a work of art. Our whole life is a work of art in that sense.
Yeah.
What a powerful experience to do that. You've created a piece, which I want to bring in at this point, called A Walk in Epping Forest. And
I had a feeling that might be the one.
I thought you might be in tune with me there.
Yeah.
So this piece, A Walk in Epping Forest, and let's see if we can't bring in some of that tree energy with this one.
A walk through Epping Forest. So there I go, and as my feet go one, planted in front of the other, walking on the pathway, covered in leaves, different colors, different stages of decay, of brittleness, subtlety, suppleness, fern and bracken interwoven, different vegetation talking to each other, nestling amongst each other, intertwining amongst each other. And as I look up to the forest of the trees above, the tall, tall trunks reaching to the sky, to the sun, to the rain, everything has its place. The sunlight is dappled across the leaves, across the ground, across my face, my hair. And as I walk, I feel the forest wrapping itself around me and at the same time opening itself up for me. And we are one. As I walk, it walks with me. As I move, it moves. One expressing the other, connected. And then comes a breeze. The leaves rustle. They bend. Constantly shimmering in the sunlight. Creatures, the little animals, the little insects, everything so populated, so busy, so silent, so loud. Movement, movement, movement. So graceful, this movement is so graceful. This earth is so beautiful. It's so alive. Constantly dying, regenerating, constant motion, cycles of being. And I'm in that. I'm a part of that, not from it. So beautiful.
So, again, that piece was a walk in Epping Forest, and that really ties into, I think, some of the work that Clare is doing with her Arts for Earth project. She was discussing with us her experience of becoming a tree and what it was like to be planted so far into the ground and to get that experience there. With Clare's work, I mean, we've been going through this kind of spectrum of things from how music is affecting us and coming through this period of emergence that we're going through universally, how sound heals, a variety of different things here, finding our voice, embracing being a chosen one, which we are here on our earth, and experiencing a variety of our different music. In addition to doing music and doing arts and working on the Arts for Earth project that she does, Clare also maintains a blog, which for those of you who are thinkers, she has some amazing deep thoughts on her blog. And she's laughing at me because she brought up a topic in some emails that we were bouncing back and forth prior to doing the show tonight. And she's got a blog there, and she knows exactly where I'm going with this. That is brings up a point of why shouldn't we blow up mountains? And I'm going to let her elaborate on that, why we shouldn't be blowing up mountains.
It does sound funny. I guess I kind of like provocative titles. So it is a question. Why shouldn't we blow up a mountain? I mean, as far as we can tell, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. It's big, it's unfeeling, and it's immobile. So if there's something that we can use inside it or underneath it? Why shouldn't we just blow it up? And I think it's a valid question. And what it speaks to me is that we have obviously more than two, but we really do have two ways of being in the world. And one is the way of the feeling self, the person who feels relationships to things. And the other is, in its extreme side, that of the thinker who observes with the eyes only that which it can see. So it only evaluates at a surface level. And if you only evaluate at a surface level, you're really going to miss out on a lot. Even with your ears, if you only evaluate on what you can hear, and Jesse, you referred to this in terms of different frequency ranges that different species, reside within, humans can't hear everything. We can only hear what we can express, which is typically 20 to 20,000 hertz if you have average hearing. But, rock and mountain have a completely different frequency. It's going to be a lot, I think, lower frequency. So we won't hear it. And if we can't hear it and we can't see something move, we tend to decide that it has, either that it's dead and therefore has no use, or that it's not very interesting and therefore has no use. And there is a psychic quality to the fabric of life that we're part of, and that is made up of all that is here. And some of that we can see. That's the stuff that has shapes and that often we can touch. It has form. But there is so much more that supports that. Like, that's literally the tip of the iceberg, or one dandelion petal of a whole dandelion. And that which we can't see is the stuff that we can feel if we choose to practice engaging with that side of ourselves. So apart from anything, there's a moral imperative, I feel, to respecting that which we don't understand. Like, if we don't understand someone or something, take a step back and respect it. Don't just assume that means that we can dive in, and start invading something that's not ours. And that's the other thing that I find quite strange about us as humans, is this assumption, like our default setting, in the Western way of thinking at least, that if something doesn't already have a flag on it, then we can put one on it and therefore own it and therefore use it in whichever way suits the extent of our imagination, which could often be improved, I think. So I don't know if that exactly answers the idea of why shouldn't we blow up mountains, but I think basically because it's wrong is why we shouldn't. But I think there are very imaginative ways that we can explore why it's wrong. And if anyone's interested, they can go to the blog and peruse that, and feel free to comment. There's an area for people to comment, because it's a conversation. When I do a blog, I'm really initiating a conversation.
And I think that's great. And as I mentioned, the concepts that are involved are so deep, because we do get on one thought train. And today, of course, we have this big thing. Well, we can't be blasting here and we can't be blasting there. And I think that, yes, we have to respect and realize what we're doing when we start blowing things up. But on the other hand, there is more to it, because there are some hidden things, and we do get a lot of things out of the earth from doing that. And like all things, there is a balance to be found there with that. And I think you bring up a good point with the respect and the stepping back, and realizing that just because we can't see something or we can't hear it or touch it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And this is a big concept with what we're moving into these days, because love is a huge key. Vibration is a huge key. And we can't always see it, and we can't always hear it, and we can't always feel it, but it still exists.
Yes. And that's the beginner's mind, you see, Jessie. When you take the position of beginner's mind, what you're really doing is saying, I don't know. And that's a powerful place to arrive at. And it can take people a very, very large number of years to get there. As we all know, in our adolescence, we think we know everything. But if we're lucky, that wears off. and the more it wears off, the more open we automatically become. There's sort of a direct relationship, I think, in terms of that fading away, and then our ability to be humble, to listen. It helps us with our listening immensely, and that's where the magic is.
And it does, and I think the right piece to bring in at this point, because we are getting closer and closer to the end of the show. It's hard for me to believe it's been that much time already.
I know.
It just goes by so fast. But you've got a piece here. It's called the 10 Commandments, and I think that's an appropriate piece with this discussion because, there are these rules, there are these guidelines there, but at the same time, there's more than what we can see. And some of these universal laws are in place to help us in different ways, and that they're there to be followed because they work. And so I'm just going to kind of delve into that because I think it just kind of fits in with what we're talking about, that we've got to look beyond just the immediate definition of something. That was 10 Commandments by Clare Hedin, and she's been our guest here on Activating Compassion tonight. We've been working with her music and sound vibration, sound healing work to bring us in with this emergence. She is the third of 3 guests that I've had in a series of talking about this dynamic emergence of raising the vibrations with us. And so this has been, I think, really an amazing show, getting to experience her music and what's been going on. Clare, I want to give you the opportunity to go ahead and share with our listeners how people can contact you, any events that you might have coming up or going on that you'd like to share with people.
Thank you, Jessie. I think the best thing for people to do is to go to my website, clarehedin.com, and on the homepage itself is a newsletter sign-up form. And if you do that, that's the easiest way, because when I have something going on, I can just email you and let you know. And that way you won't miss stuff. And the only thing that I know of at the moment, because I've sort of been, I guess, very focused on teaching for the last 4 months, so I haven't been setting up any gigs, but this evening has really inspired me, actually, to do some more gigs, and that's something that if you're on the newsletter, you'll be able to hear about when I have some dates set up. They'd be both typically probably, up and down the West Coast. So as far down as LA, I'm guessing, maybe a bit further, and then maybe further north of Mendocino, but, in Berkeley and San Francisco. But then next year, I'm actually going to be curating a series of days. I think it's one Saturday a month starting in March. So I will have an evening of performance in February, which, again, you'll need to find out about. That will be at 333, which is a venue in San Rafael. It's actually on Locust Avenue, and that's the street address, but they use it also as the venue name. And sorry, I just got to get rid of that. They asked me to curate something because I obviously know a lot of people in the sound healing world, and each of those Saturdays that will begin in March, apart from the one I'm going to do in February, to introduce it, we'll have people like Sylvia Nakash, Stephen Halpern, perhaps Joshua Leeds, Chloe Goodchild, people that are really well known for being ever so good at their craft and very respectful of their craft. And those day-long events will probably be like $125 for the entire day. They'll be really special, very unique days, one-off events. So that's something you can email me through my website as well. There's a contact page on the website, and it's just info@clarehedin.com. But if you don't remember that, then just go to the contact page, and you can email me through that. But all of this is best kept in touch through the newsletter until I get some more stuff actually organized. So those are my main things that I can tell people about.
Perfect. And Steve Halpern, I know, does some amazing music as well, so that's, I'm sure, going to be an amazing event to be at for those who can do that. It's going to be a great experience. I actually met him years ago. Yeah, I met him several years ago, so that should be an absolutely amazing experience to be a part of. Clare, I really want to thank you for being on the show tonight, and for anybody who came in late to the show, I certainly hope that you will go back and listen to the show from the beginning in the archives, share the archive links with people. I believe I also have your website listed in the show description. And also, I've got somebody in here in chat that just mentioned perfect. I'm in Pleasanton, so that's a great option. There you go. That you might have one of the listeners there joining you on those events.
Jessie, I should also, it occurs to me to let people know, I actually do work with groups and with individuals to help them find their own voice in every sense of the word. whether it's singing, public speaking, private conversation, self-confidence, finding your own mission in life, coaching people towards that sense of identity, from a fullest place possible, the place of the most adventure. So I love working with people. If anyone is looking for that kind of support, they can get in touch with me again through my website.
And that's perfect that you brought that up, because people sometimes they think I only need to work with a voice if I'm going to be in a public figure, running a radio station or a radio show or speaking publicly or things like that. But finding your voice is also about just communicating with people in day-to-day life and being able to bring that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it comes
really
through
important.
on a very personal level, in addition to if you're doing other things and trying to bring your voice out into the world through different modalities. I mean, even something as simple as, say, like a massage therapist has a voice and how they're working with people and the healing that comes out through voice, whether that's speaking or singing or music or however that is. So definitely Clare has a gift and an ability, and I think a very special thing that she is sharing with the world. Take advantage of that. Look up the work that she's doing. Her CDs. Your CDs, are they available on your website?
Yes, well mentioned. So easy for me to forget to say these things. Yes, on my website there's a tab called CDs, and if you go there, you can actually hear samples of everything that's available for purchase, either as a download or a physical CD. So you can track things there.
Perfect. And you've been listening to some of those samples, some of those songs here tonight. If you've enjoyed that music, go and check out her CDs. Go and check out the songs where you can download them. There's a huge selection, as you've experienced tonight. It's everything from a cappella to guitar things to piano things to nature sounds to more primal beats. So a whole variety of things available there. Again, Clare, I want to really thank you for being on the show here tonight. And as we wrap up, I just want to remind people all of my contact information is at the bottom of the show description. Please be patient with me. My website is getting totally redone and shifted right now. So that is going to be coming around and will be new and amazing when it gets together. Also, as a listener, whether you're either live or in the archives, you know that sometimes I offer some specials on the work that I'm doing with people. I'm currently offering a special of 75% off of my 1-hour consultations. In here, I see Romelia's putting in chat here. She says, thank you very much. I want to remind you also that we've got several shows here on Main Street Universe, and those are occurring throughout the week. Wednesdays, 11 a.m., Daniel, Michael, Janice, they are on the air. They're usually bringing some sort of interesting discussion. Sometimes there's readings being done. We also have, and that happens at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays, Kevin Baird, Walking on the Sidewalk. He's there with his Horizon Oracle Journeys. He's been doing things now on Mondays. So definitely check that out if you are interested in having readings or anything like that done. Next week, I am doing a show, and I'm running the show about an hour later than normal next week because I am going to be traveling and coming home. Hopefully I'm not going to get stuck in Chicago airport someplace on the way home. But I will be running a little bit late, but the show will be an intuitive coaching show, so I'm going to be doing readings for the upcoming year. If you have questions about relationships or life things or any of that that's coming up, do jump into that show because the whole show will be focused on the new year, things that are coming up, doing those intuitive readings for you, and giving you and helping you work through the issues that you're dealing with here in the new year and how to accomplish things. I've got an amazing lineup of guests that are going to be coming up over the next few months. just to give you an idea, I have coming up Dina Bouvet, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, Gail Kushner. I'm working on bringing some people in for relationship things, spicing up relationships. I'm working on getting some guests in that will be related to feng shui, coordinating with the Chinese New Year. Stacey Hall, Laura Bedford. Those are just an idea of some of the guests that I have coming up throughout this next couple of months on our show. And I just want to remind you that I am Jessie Ann Nichols George. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into activating compassion. And don't forget that if you've enjoyed my show this evening, share it with others. It's going to be available at this same link in our archives. And I'm going to leave you tonight with a song here by Clare. We've got a couple of songs here that we didn't get to yet, but one of those songs that I'm going to leave you with is Waves. And again, thank you, Clare, for being on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
Thank you, Jessie, so much.
Crashing down on me, helping me to be not special